Good morning, everyone, and welcome once again to Arnie's Fantasy World of Sports. Look at the chat room busting at the seams with Andrea, the Amazings, Dennis, DK Luce, Doug Boyle, Lenny, Mitch, NYC, Phil Chaplin, who is on tonight at 7 o'clock. You don't want to miss that. We got four guests in the lounge today. It's guest Libby, guest Matty, guest Olita, and guest Rosenda. Well, welcome everyone. And so, Lenny, I loved your analysis of the young pitchers. And you know, I've already had some drafts that were a little later after the postponement of the season. And I can just tell you, I've drafted a lot of the guys you mentioned this morning. And so, I think it adds a lot of intrigue to the fantasy season. I think another thing is adding intrigue is where we started our discussion yesterday, and that is with the Major League Baseball proposal of division realignment for 2020. And yesterday we went through the Cactus League and analyzed that to some degree. And today we're going to look at the Grapefruit League. And we're going to start in the East. And you talk about top-heavy. Two of the three divisions in the Grapefruit League are really staunch, and we're going to start with those. We're going to start in the East with the Nationals, the world champs, the Astros, the team they beat to be the world champs, the Mets, who have even with the Syndergaard injury, the Mets are a solid team. Good morning, Phil Chaplin. It's good to see you. The Cardinals and the Marlins. Okay, so the Marlins, let's call them the weakest team in the division, correct? So we'll put the Marlins in fifth. But let's take a look at this division. And you're going to have DHs throughout because you've got American League team Houston in the division. So I want to start with the Metropolitans, who even without Syndergaard, they still have their ace, DeGrom, and they have a really good batting order. Their lineup, their everyday lineup are going to be, and we're going to talk about the Pirates in just a few minutes, Phil Chaplin. But if you look at the everyday lineup and add the DH, yes, the DH into the mix for the Metropolitans, it's really intriguing what could be going on with this team. And let's start with their infield. They've got Pete Alonso at first base. We know what Alonso did last year in winning the National League Rookie of the Year award. He hit 53 bombs, drove in 120. And why can't he repeat that? Now, I know he can't repeat it because he may not play as many games. But Alonso has pure power, and he's going to have Michael Conforto in that lineup. He's going to have Robinson Cano at second base. Cano should be ready to play a full year. You've got at shortstop Rosario, who typically tails off at the end of the year. But this year, remember, you don't have a full season. So the last month where Rosario usually tires, he won't have that month to tire. He stole 19 bases last year. Hit 287. And now you've got, they've said that it's going to be McNeil at third, but you've also got J.D. Davis. That's a two-headed monster. McNeil hit 320 with 23 home runs. J.D. Davis, who can also play the outfield, hit 307 with 22 home runs. You've got returning from injury their center fielder, Brandon Nimmo. And Nemo's sort of the wild card, but not the biggest wild card in the bunch. We're going to get to that in a moment. But certainly a wild card because he was out most of the year last year, but now he's going to be given that opportunity to probably play every day. Then you've got in right field, Michael Conforto, 33 bombs last year, typically gets a nagging injury every now and then and misses a few weeks. But that home run potential is there from the left side to go along with the first baseman Alonso from the right side. And now I want to talk about the biggest wild card of all, with the season starting late, and did you draft him? Yeah, I think Ahmad Rosario batting leadoff could be special. I think the Mets are a sneaky team. Now, pitching-wise, we'll talk about that in a moment. But from an offensive perspective, I've gone through the lineup. Oh, and I didn't mention Wilson Ramos, their catcher, who's probably also good for 15 to 20 bombs. How about Yoenis Cespedes? Yoenis Cespedes now, with the realignment, can DH. And probably the most likely candidate to do it. Now, I know they have Matt Adams left-handed. I know they have Dominic Smith, a left-hander. But when you take a look at the potential and the upside of Yoenis Cespedes, adding that power and not playing defense, and I know we can knock the Mets. We can knock them into next week. But I'm talking about a lineup 1 through 9 that probably is as solid in a shortened season as any team, maybe short of Houston, in that division. I love what Cespedes brings to the table. I love the fact that he now, remember, his contract cut. He's down to $6 million, but he's got a lot of incentives. So he has all the reason in the world to come out and really be a force. Dominic Smith the same way from the left side of the plate. Dominic Smith can also play outfield. He hit 11 home runs and 282 average in limited play last year. He's been playing a lot of outfield. Don't discount Dominic Smith. So the Mets have a solid, very solid lineup. And we look at the pitching. You have DeGrom. You have Stroman. You have Porcello. You have Matz. You have Waka. Now that is not something beyond number one you're going to get really excited about. But look at Stroman's numbers. He struck out 159. He had a 3.22 ERA. He had a 2.96 ERA. And then to switch over to the Mets, his strikeout improved. He went from 19.3% to 23%. His ground ball rate increased. His home run rate did go up. But Stroman is adequate. Porcello, I'm not sold on. He really exploded last year. So the pitching staff is questionable at best, right? Beyond DeGrom. But the bullpen is solid. You got Diaz at the back, who I think is ready for a bounce back. You've got Lugo. You've got Betances. You've got Familia. Wilson. These guys are solid in the bullpen. So if the starters can give the Mets 5-6 innings, the back end is solid. I like the Mets. It's a solid division, guys. So, let's go ahead. Let's talk about those Astros, who should be the second best team in the division because they came in second last year. And I don't know how the change of scenery will affect Houston with the Boo Birds they would have gotten. And now the season starting late. Do you think that the trash can talk, chat, jeering will be quite less than it would have been? I think so. You look at this lineup. First of all, having a DH, of course they would have a DH anyway, but their DH is not just any DH. Jordan Alvarez is a beast. And I don't know where you're drafting Jordan Alvarez this year, but I've seen him ranked around 40. And I think he's top 20. Come on. Look at what he did last year in, 2/3 of a season? He hit 27 homers. He hit 313. 78 RBIs. Again, an abbreviated season. He had an OPS of over 1.067. And he led the league in that category with over 250 plate appearances. His exit velo is over 90. His barrel rate 10.3. Now he was unraveled some playing the Yankees in the playoffs, no doubt about it. And the curveball seemed to give him trouble. But if you have seen him play in person, he is a man among boys. And I've seen him play in person. And the Astros are hoping to have him play left field frequently this year. So it could be that he not only DHs, but he also plays outfield. Now, I know he has the bad knees, but he has an incredible bat. And just know the Astros will DH him as much as possible to save on those needs. And then you get into the regular order, and you've got George Springer, and you've got Michael Brantley. And my question is, and we can talk about this some, right? What role does Kyle Tucker play? How good is Kyle Tucker? He is projected to start this year. As we got into the Grapefruit spring training season, he started Grapefruit League play 0 for 16. And the talk was, okay, another disappointment. But then after going 0 for 16, he had 8 hits in his last 13 at-bats. Tucker and Reddick are in a dogfight for that final outfield position. Either player can perform. That's their weak spot. And when that's your weak spot, you're in good shape. Bregman at third. Altuve at second. The question about Carlos Correa is health. And that's the question every year. I love it. But the question is, Chappie, are you a better shortstop than Correa? Because Correa is going to miss a third of the season. He always does. I have drank that punch in fantasy drafts the last 2 years, and I have sworn I will not drink that punch again. At any rate, the Astros are solid. The pitching, now we know they lost arguably the best pitcher in the game to the Yankees when Garrett Cole signed his free agent deal. Now, we got to remember they still have Verlander, who with the lat injury and the time off, he's a year older, but he should be recovered enough that he will start the year. We've got Greinke, a year older, 36. Coming back from injury, I think an intriguing player for the Astros is Lance McCullers Jr. We saw glimpses of greatness in 2018. We know he had TJ surgery in November of 18. Missed all of last year. Probably would have come into the year with a checked workload. But now with the shortened season, Lenny touched on this with rookie pitchers when he talked about Kopech and Luzardo at 9 o'clock and others. I think it also applies to pitchers who are coming off injury just as much. And Lance McCullers has tremendous stuff. He now falls into that 3 slot for the Astros. The unknown there is what comes after that with Urquidy. Does Whitley finally get a shot at it? The bullpen is solid. But the Astros, I think, in that division could come in second, could come in first, could come in third. It's a very strong division, the Eastern Division in the Grapefruit League. So, let's also now talk about the defending world champs, the Washington Nationals. Pitching good. You know, I think the team that may have benefited the most as a team, not as an individual, but as a team would be the Nationals. Because remember, and the Astros too. because they played into